Well, welcome everybody to the Family Biz Show. I'm your host, Michael Columbus with Family Wealth and Legacy. And today we are joined with Ray Isaac from Northwinds Services Group. Most of you will know Ray from Isaac Heating and Air Conditioning here in Rochester, New York, which was a multi-generation family-owned business. And Ray has, transitioned out and onto new adventures. We're going to talk about what that transition process looked like for him, all the kinds of things that go with it. When what does this look like for the family? So welcome, Ray.
Thank you. Thanks for having me again.
What was great is Ray was one of the very first multi-generation family businesses that we interviewed. We had you and Anthony Daniele on, and that was the start of how this show changed. When it began, it was during COVID times. And so we were just bringing in experts and consultants and what can business owners, what can family businesses do to get through, all the COVID times. And then we started interviewing family business and this is way more fun than having the coaches and consultants on. I still have some on and they're wonderful, but your stories resonate more with the other family businesses out there. And so appreciate you being here. Yeah. What we always do is kind of talk about your transitions, but it's, your history. You didn't start in the family business, that wasn't the first job that you had, I don't believe. So I just like to remind people of kind of what was your journey to get to where you are today?
Okay. Well, yeah, first job, well, actually probably was, but not technically or legally. When you're 8 years old, cutting up sheet metal in the sheet metal shop for dad because mom wants to get you out of the house on a Saturday. It's probably not the thing an 8-year-old should be doing is working on a jump shear, cutting up sheet metal scraps with my brothers and I for my dad to use on the jobs during the week. So, and we got into a little bit of mischief there. We realized that some of the machines there could take a round piece of metal and turn it into a ninja star that you could throw at each other. I remember him coming out one day and he looked at us, and when your kids are in trouble and they give you that look on their face, and he looks at, and we're all looking at him like, uh-oh. And he's like, what's going on? And he turns around and looks, and his brand new painted drywall wall for the shop had all these little ninja stars embedded in it that we had a little war in the back. So we spent the next day spackling and painting the wall again. So
you learned all kinds of things, not just sheet metal, but drywall repair.
Well, yeah, when you got 4 boys, you're either gonna learn to break something and fix it, or pay somebody to fix it. So we didn't have any money to pay him, so we ended up fixing it ourselves. And so no, it was an early beginning for all of us. I got my working papers I was 14 years old. Technically working in the office, if the office was a construction site, but we enjoyed it. We couldn't wait to get to work. Nice. My brothers and I were all about the same. For my 16th birthday, I got a toolbox full of sheet metal tools. Dad said, I can give you something that's going to waste money. I can give you something that's going to make you money. So as you can tell, like you, I've learned a lot from my dad. I did. We unfortunately lost him last year, just about a year and 3 months ago. And but his, the legacy is where your lessons, your teachings, your memories, your stories live on. And they still live on not only in the family, but in the company. I still walk around there every once in a while, and there's stuff still on the walls, and there's teachings and policies and procedures that my grandfather started that he carried through, and then he passed them on to us. So that still lives at the company, and we'll talk a little bit about our next stage at Isaac. But it's heartwarming to see that the legacy is very strong, and nice. That'll carry through no matter what changes go on.
Very cool. So from 16 to today, if we condense that, we're going to do the condensed, and then we're going to dive deep into some of the areas in the last couple of years here.
Yeah, 16 working summers, vacations. Dad knew our vacation schedule better than we did because he'd check with mom and say, okay, one of the boys available, and he'd come upstairs, kick the bed, say, I'm leaving in 5 minutes, let's go, and we were off to work with them. And then we can when we finally learned to drive and got our licenses. I do remember we were on a job once, and I was like 15 years old, and the job foreman comes up and he throws me the keys of the stake bed truck, and he says, I want you to run back to the shop and pick up this, and this, and go get this. And I kind of gave him this dumb look. He's like, what's wrong? I said, I don't have my license. Why don't you have your license? Because I'm 15. So he had this look on his face. Give me those keys back. Your dad will kill me if I let you drive the truck. I'm like, well, I was all excited. I thought I was going to be able to take the truck. I just wanted him to know that I didn't have a license. But so that stage, working through high school, my brothers, they went into the business, but they got their journeyman's licenses. So they kind of went to a different trade school. I mean, really, we talk a lot about that now, the difference between college and trade school. I believe I've seen it firsthand. I was, freshman, sophomore, or whatever in college, and just working weekends and summers to try to make some extra money. And they're buying houses and vehicles and had nice toys. And I'm like, geez, I hope this degree finally gets me something. But the trades, and we can't beat it up enough. It's you got to keep talking about it, because that is such a viable career path. Whether it be plumbing, electrical, sheet metal, starting your own business. I mean, you're creating something. You're creating wealth. You're creating a legacy. And again, college is important, but it's not for everybody. And I think we've created a fallacy to think that the only path to success is through college. I know a lot of very rich plumbers and people that are doing very well that started their own businesses right out of high school in the trades or in other avenues. But they all did very well. But I went to college. My dad said one of you is going to go and actually technically learn how to run the business. So I went to Fisher and got my 4-year degree. And I remember going in one day and saying to my dad, I said, I think I want to go get my MBA. He said, well, that's nice. He says, we're going to teach you the rest. So you got the 4-year. But after college, went in 1988, started as a HR manager, fleet manager, inventory coordinator, did a bunch of stuff until 1990 came around and he handed me the worst job in the company, which was service manager. Anybody who's the service manager for any type of company, whether it be auto repair or heating and air conditioning, it is the worst job in the world. You're never going to make all three parties of the company, your employees and the customer, happy at the same time. You're going to be making somebody happy, and the rest of them are going to be a little upset. But did that for a number of years and worked my way up through and doing different jobs. Became vice president, general manager in '96, and then president in around 2001 or 2002, and grew the company from there. And and we did a pretty good job. And I say we, it wasn't just me. We had a great team around us. And people always ask me, what was your greatest skill? I said, well, I'm a terrible manager. I'm probably not even a great leader, but I was a great team builder. Mm-hmm. And I knew how to surround myself with people that were a lot smarter than me, which was easy because that was pretty much everybody else in the room. But we grew the company from probably around $6 million in revenue up to, when we just partnered with the private equity, to about 70 million. So we had a pretty good run, growing the company. But that was kind of the last phase. And it's funny, Michael, I can look back at each one of those phases and I can compartmentalize them. In the position you were in. Right.
I mean, the struggle to get to over 1 million. Your dad had done that before you, and then there's that plateau at 1 million. Okay, now everything's got to change. And getting to 10 million is ginormous. Yeah. It's a huge effort for every business out there. And then you guys went and did 7 times that.
Yeah. I mean, those are what I call levels of complexity. There's different names for them in our industry, and they're like a wall, and you're climbing, kind of all of a sudden you hit this wall, and the wall is this gap. You hit the wall and you got to have a ladder to get past that. And if you can get past those levels of complexity, then the next run will take you to that next level. It's almost like mountain climbing. You're going to come to a precipice, and you get there, precipice, and you have to get across it. And then you can keep climbing, and all of a sudden you're going to hit another wall, and you got to get above it. So, and really, that's what we're proposing now, and that's how we present a good value model to the companies that we're now partnering with. That I'm on the merger and acquisition team. I do a lot of the acquisitions of the companies. As I was walking in today, I was on a phone call. We're looking at a company to acquire. We're going to put a letter of intent in on them. So, but that's what I help them with now. And I had a friend of mine once that said that our secret to success is pulling a Gretzky. I said, what's a Gretzky? They said, we skate to where the puck's going, and that's how we present it to them. We're skating to where the puck is going. We've been 10 million before, and this is a 5 million. We know what it takes to get to 10 million. We've been 20 million. We've been 30 million. And not that revenue is everything, but it's at least a good benchmark to know what you need in an organization in order to support that type of revenue.
Yeah, I think it's, revenue, how many employees you have, the level of, the abilities of the employees on the team, the leadership team, all of those things factor into, getting to the next level.
Yeah.
Before I want to come back to those
Sure.
levels of complexity, I think is really important for people to understand. But so, Isaac Heating and Cooling, you're $70 million in revenue, family members, your brothers, all working there, and you're approached by private equity.
We were approached by everybody.
Approached by everybody.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. And again, and again, I try to think back a little on the process. We were getting a letter a day. I mean, there was a big push in late teens, early. We decided in 2020 to finally make the move. My dad, my uncle, and our families owned it up until 2017.
Okay.
We ended up buying the company from my uncle, my dad, and my late sister in 2017. When I say buy it, we talked about this, I think the last time you heard about equity business versus lifestyle. We ran it as a true equity business. We ran it like it was General Electric. Even though you own stock of General Electric, doesn't mean you can walk in there and tell anybody what to do. You don't get a paycheck from there unless you're an employee. You're still held to the employment standards. So we treated it very, very purely as a equity business, which helped us in the sale and especially in the diligence process. I mean, we had what they call add backs. So add backs are the gas for the boat, the wife's car, the kid's cell phone. We had zero, and we're talking zero. And you understand, zero add backs. Nothing run through the business that was going to get add back other than what the definition of EBITDA is: earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization. So we had, other than those things, there was no family expenses. I remember one day I went in and I bought something with the company money. It was for work.
Right.
I justified it as that. And my dad says, nice, who bought it? I said, well, the company. And he said, well, how'd your uncle feel about that? I said, what do you mean? He said, well, he just paid for half of it. And that was the lesson right there. So we always ran the business as an equity business, and we never commingled. Family and employment were very different. One doesn't entitle the other. And I talk about, the 7 E's in business. I have, what we call the 7 E's, and then the evil 8th E. The first 3 E's are what we provide. We engage, we educate, we empower, the 4, and we enable.
Okay.
And then all I want our employees to do is evolve and execute and enjoy. I want them to do those. And then there's the evil 8th E called entitlement that'll kill any family business or any business. I think Kodak died because of entitlement. People felt they were entitled to, the success built entitlement, and that's a lack of leadership where you have to keep tying back the results to the efforts. And people all of a sudden now they feel that the efforts didn't lead to the results, or the results didn't come from efforts, especially from the outside. And a lot of times when it happens on the inside, that's even more dangerous.
Agreed. And, and it's very few families that are running a business take that approach to what they're doing.
Oh, don't I know? We see them right now and out buying companies. We've looked at over 150 companies over the last 3 years, and it's a minority that run it. Nobody ran it or is running them as pure as we did. There's nothing wring with that. I mean,
of course.
And we don't judge. I said, we're not here. We're not the IRS. We're not here to judge how you justify your expenses. But I have yet to see a company that has zero ad backs.
Right. The reality is I'm not paying you for those ad backs.
Yeah. But they get credit for them. And if we add them back, then you apply a multiple. We're saying, look, you're not going to continue this. Your wife's car is now going to be your expense. But whatever that cost is last year, you're going to get 4, 5, 6, 8 times that on your purchase price because it's a non-recurring expense. So, we can get into technicalities of it, but we do show them that, look, you're going to be running this as an equity business. So it is a little bit of a shift for them, but it's fun to walk them through that, and I'm having a blast. It's a blast to go in and do these things and work with these companies.
I want to talk about that process of being approached, the family meetings that you guys had, the emotion that went with this.
Yeah.
And then I want to dive deep into the processes today, because I do think it's so important for family-owned businesses to understand what does it mean to be investment ready.
Yeah.
What does it mean to be investment grade, in your business? And I think I want to spend the most time on that, but let's go back.
Yeah. So, the acquisition, I guess I didn't answer your question. We were getting a letter a day. And
Okay.
when we bought the company from my uncle, we had no intention of selling. I mean, we were having fun. My brothers, we'd get the letters, I'd show them to them. They're like, yeah, we're not interested. And I was like, yeah, I get it. We enjoy owning it. We represent the third generation. So 2017, 2018, 2019, we kept getting letters. 2020, and I talked to a good friend of mine down in Maryland, and he had just partnered with somebody. And I told him what I thought the company was worth, and he's like, yeah, no. I'm like, oh, is that too much? He goes, no, that's way undervalued. I said, okay, so maybe I should be talking to somebody. Along with that, none of us was getting any younger. My oldest brother, Kenny, is 65 now. He was, 62, 63 at the time. We're looking at, okay, what happens next? Because it can be very upsetting to an established business to go through that transition. I mean, we'd have people come up to us and say, guys, we don't want to work for anybody else. We're like, well, we're not going to live forever. You are going to be working for somebody else. So get that in your head. Let's be thoughtful and intelligent and intentional in this process. So I started, just at least feeling the waters. My brothers weren't even involved in it. Half the time they didn't even know. I talked to different parties just to get a feel, get a data set together, and expectations and what it all looks like. And finally, in late 2020, we decided to go through a formal process and solicited a broker, a banker, a representative to market the business. That was a auction process. The first step, we actually interviewed different ones and we pitted them against each other. So I wanted somebody who's going to represent us the best and make sure that we had the best deal that we could possibly get. And that's not just the money was all about the same, but the big difference, and we're seeing that now, is this is what we propose to companies when we go in and talk to them, is the culture and how we're going to integrate you and what happens with your team. And we had some hardcore requirements. We didn't want to change the name. And my grandfather would come back from the dead and kick my butt if that happened. So, we didn't want to do that. We wanted to honor the legacy that my dad, my uncles, and our families created in the area. Wanted our team to remain in place, not only remain in place, but also have an opportunity to grow within the organization. We wanted to be the platform. I probably should have asked a lot more questions about what it meant to be a platform, because being a platform, we were their first acquisition in home services, our private equity partners, which by name is TrueArc is our partners, but came out of New York City. We were their first acquisition in home services, so HVAC, plumbing, electrical. So we wanted to be that platform. So, and again, when it came down to it, they all had, about the same price. They all had the same tombstones of companies they've already done deals with, and they actually met all of our requirements.
Okay.
We did have a final, and it's funny. You got to always continue your diligence. We had kind of these cleanup meetings. We already knew who our partner was going to be, but we said, okay, let's bring them in and let's, just ask some questions. I included our leadership team in this. My brothers, as I said, knew about it, but they weren't involved. I didn't even let them know until, we got down the process a little bit, because I wanted them to focus on, the business. They were all very busy there, and I took the lead on this, and I included our leadership team. We're sitting in our meetings, our final meetings, and I have a saying that whenever somebody, and our team knew this, and whenever somebody begins an answer with well or ends it with but, just disregard everything else they just said. And our top partner that we had already think that we're going to select, when we asked them a question, I asked them a specific question. I said, are we going to be the platform for this, and are we going to keep our name? And the key person there looked at us, they went, well, and our whole team looked over at me with that, oh boy, this is not going to go far. We actually booted them right out of the process, and we ended up going with the one or two down from them. May not have been the highest price, but it was the best culture and the best cultural fit for us. So they ended up coming from second or third place and became our preferred partner. And you know what? Time has proven that they've been the best partner for us. They have held to their word, and they've been great to work with. All the stories I heard about private equity, 10 years ago, somebody said, would you ever sell to private equity? I would said, emphatic, no way.
Right.
They come in and they ruin your business. Well, they've only helped us. We've grown from 70 up to over 100 million now, just at Isaac. And that's just proof positive that having those resources, that capital, has been good for us.
how many interviews do you think you went through, and how many different people did you talk to in that beginning phase?
Oh, the beginning phase, I had a spreadsheet that I handed to our broker, and he's like, "What's this?" I said, "These are all."
Let me go. I want to take it even back, just on the broker level. How many different investment bankers did you talk to?
It's probably a dozen. Actually, Merrill Lynch was our. I have some of my funds through there, and they offer client services, whatever they call it. Your client service team said, if you're ever willing to or looking to sell your business, we will run a brokerage process for you. And they were one of the brokers, but we ended up not choosing them. We actually chose a guy that I had excerpt from them because he's a person I already knew from the industry. And with them, it was kind of the same thing. They all had the same process. They all had the same valuations or expected range. They all had the same tombstones of deals they've done. They all had the same meeting schedule, stuff like this. And it came down to, I said, okay, well, if everything else is the same, I want the person who's going to be the best negotiator. I want the person that's going to get me the best deal, not just financial, but cultural fit, and knows the players and knows the industry. So we ended up going with a person I already knew.
Okay.
And so that was that. But I handed them on the first meeting, I handed them a 2-page list of 30 or 40 contacts that I've already had conversations with. They're like, "What is this?" And I'm like, "That's the people I've already spoken to." He's like, "Oh, okay, yes." He's checking off all the ones he already knew. He says, "Have you agreed to anything with them? Signed an NDA?" I said, "No." He said, "Okay, good." So it's a pretty intense process, but if you're going to sell your business, I know you'll save money not having a banker or broker, but you're going to lose a lot more than that in what you can get. Yeah. And not just, again, I keep going, not just financial, but what you're going to get in the right fit. B, in making sure the deal gets done. I have found, and we actually prefer, we might pay a little more, but we prefer that somebody we're buying sometimes is represented. And I say sometimes, not every deal. Some are very well put together and they don't need that, but they make sure the banker, the broker, I use those interchangeably, make sure a deal gets done.
From my experience, I've seen this over and over again where somebody doesn't want to pay. They don't see the value. They're like, "I know everybody in my industry. There's only 5 or 6 people that can buy us. We're just going to put it out to them." And what they forget is that they've never sold a business before. And so the people that are out there buying businesses have done it several times. And they know the process to get, when you're getting up to that letter of intent, the owner has all of the power. Once you have that letter of intent and you've got the NDA signed and you're now into due diligence, the seller has all the power beforehand. Once you have the letter of intent and that NDA in hand and you're into due diligence, the buyer has all the power. And the person that's selling their business has no idea of this process. Mm-hmm. And how badly they're going to get beat up. They don't know whether they're ready for sale because they've never sold a business before. If you guys did it all on your own without a broker, based on the fact that there was no ad back ends, there's, the way you ran your business, you probably would have been okay. But, you wouldn't have known culture fit. You wouldn't have known all of those other things. And you wouldn't have known how to ask those questions and ensure those things in the deal.
And that's a big thing, knowing what questions to ask. It's the answers aren't what's important. It's what questions you should ask. And you're right. Buying a business is difficult. I think selling a business is just as difficult.
100%.
We had never done either. We grew. We had 6 locations at Isaac. We did every one of those organically because I realized I was either too stupid or not experienced enough to go out and buy somebody. And I'm glad I didn't. Yeah. Because knowing now, and the gentleman I work with, he's on our team, Josh, Yale graduate, played fullback for him, just, brilliant kid. I call him a kid because he's a hell of a lot younger than I am, but, the questions he asks and the diligence he does and the models they build, and the financial models.
And it makes a huge difference because the buyer's job is to get that price that, on the letter of interest and, where they start the whole process to get it down.
See, but that isn't ours. See, that's where we're unique. Every single one of our deals, we have closed to the penny at our letter of intent. We never, and again, our company at Isaac, we never did bid to spec work. We did some, but bid to spec is where you throw a bid in and then you make your money on the change orders.
Okay.
in our buying process, a lot of companies are what exactly as you say, Michael. They put a letter of intent in. They do that. That get them on the line, and then we're going to beat you up on the Q of E, which is quality of earnings.
Okay.
I mean, quality of earnings in the diligence. I mean, I call it a conscious colonoscopy because you are awake as this thing's going through. It is tough. We submitted over 1,800 individual pieces of information during our Q of E. My guy at the time, Adam. One piece of information was your last 5 years of reviewed tax returns. That was one piece of information. There was 1,800 of those requests. They're asking about a in-ground fuel tank that we had back at 2 locations ago. And where's the closing report for that? I said, this is from like 1997. I mean, but that's what. But we are very unique in that process of we never try to beat people up. But it's nice if they have representation. But yeah, trying to sell a business it's not easy. And if you want to do this, if it's something you're not just dipping your toe in the water, if you want to do this and you're serious about it, you kind of need the representation. And hand in glove with that is if you are going to get a broker, you are going to be serious about it, because once they send out that thing called your teaser and then the SIM, your confidential information memorandum, when we sent out our teaser, the teaser is, hey, business, Northeast, heating and air conditioning, some plumbing, doing about 70 million. Are you interested? We got back here, sign this NDA. We had 70 NDAs signed for Isaac. So we had 70 interested parties. From that NDA, then they get your SIM.
Okay.
And your SIM is not confidential. It's confidential, but it's not private where they redact your name. It's all of your information, your team. You can redact some employee names and things like that, but all your financials, your marketing, everything. So all of a sudden, 70 of our closest friends and competitors had all of our information. Actually, had one of our close competitors in Rochester call and say, hey, you guys selling? What do you mean? He says, I got your SIM sitting in front of me. So that's the one thing about it with a broker. If you're going to go through an auction process, our accountant, Mike Dinan, said you're not going to just dip your toe in the water in this. Once you decide to go in, you're all the way in the pool. You're going to be soaking wet. So, but we've been very, I think, very upfront. We use this as a very unique selling proposition to people that we're looking to buy, is that we're going to close at the deal that we've offered to you upfront. We do, as you heard, that diligence call right there. That was presenting all of the specifics of it to our PE partners to make sure they have a buy-in, because then they have to go to an investment committee to make sure that if we do get this LOI signed, that they can get it funded. So they need to be comfortable with it. So we do a bulk of our diligence before, and then we go back and just verify. That's why we really truly use that term, the quality of earnings. We make sure that what we bid on is within a specific range of what we're going to pay. So we've been pretty accurate on that. We're batting 1,000 on paying exactly what we've offered, which I think is encouraging to people. They don't want to be wasting time where they offered you $1 million and all of a sudden they want to pay you $500,000. It's not. That's not what we do. It's unique maybe, but we like that approach better.
I like it. I wanted to share a story real quick about one of my clients. They had valuation done, $33 million. So it's a relatively healthy business. Nobody, very few people would be unhappy with a $33 million valuation. When they were done, they ended up with $27 million. And the reason for that is exactly the things that are, normal in the industry. They were beat up through that quality of earnings. They were beat up on their systems and processes. And at the end of the day, they did not get what they thought. Well, $33 million to $27 million, $6 million on the table, it's an awful lot of money. And so, from my experience, from what you're talking about, and yes, your company that you're working with now, that's not your philosophy. That's not what you're looking to do. You're just looking to make sure that they line up. But if somebody wasn't ready to go to market, and you ran into them, yes, you're trying to get them where they need to be, but at the end of the day, you can only pay what you're going to pay based on the quality of those earnings. So I think, working with an investment banker or a broker before you go into the process, like 5 years before you start that process, to make sure that you're dotting your I's and crossing your T's, and knowing the 1,800 pieces of information you're going to be asked for before you do it, that's where the broker and the investment banker really earns their stripes, is helping you to get prepared for the process and then ensuring that the deal gets done when then it does happen. So I just wanted to share that as, I have personal experience with a family right here in town that, said, nope, we got this covered. We can do this. We've sold things before. We know how to do this.
Yeah, we're not selling a furnace, that's for sure. I should say that, we have uncovered things in the Q of E that would cause us to, we don't like to what we call retrade. We don't want to, which the 33 down to a 27, but we will be upfront with that and say, guys, the Q of E is not tying out. There's something that is not happening here. And it's not our fault. We're just uncovering the facts.
Right.
Maybe it's something they weren't aware of. Maybe it was a dip in performance, because this is a living, breathing, fluid document up to at least a month before closing. We're looking to make sure this thing doesn't tank.
Yeah.
So we have had to pull out of deals. We've let companies know. We try to be very collaborative in that. Say, okay, here's what's happening. If you can get this performance back up, we're going to go what we call pencils down. We're not going to do any more work on this. Our Q of E provider is going to hold off. Touch base with us in a month. Let us know what's going on, and let's see if we can revisit this. And we've done that. We've given them time to get their ducks in a row. We have a couple deals right now where we've had to do that. They've just fallen on a little bit tougher times, and their past performance has been no indicator of future results. So, but to your point, I think there's a question there: is what should somebody do 5 years out? In that 5 year, make sure you got your business in order. Start running it. You don't have to go completely equity business, zero add back type of thing. There's always things you can justify. We're not judging. We're not the government. There's legitimate business expenses that aren't going to continue, which we get. But start, make sure you have good data. Make sure you can tie things out. Make sure you have history. Make sure you can answer the questions of, okay, what's happened with your direct labor as a percent of revenue? It's gone from 26 up to 28%. Quarter, for the first quarter over last quarter, and your 12-month trailing performance on this has slowly crept up. What's going on there? Making sure that your pricing is reflective of the quality of product that you're providing. Make sure you have good pricing. It's tough to go in and buy something and then immediately have to raise their prices. I mean, that's not a strategy we like to employ, because nothing will cause more disruption than that. As I said, we had rules. We didn't want to change anybody's name, so make sure that we still maintain that presence in the community. But if somebody sees that, okay, I deal with Bob's Heating. Last year, my service agreement was $110. Now it's $220. Geez, what's happening? What's going on? And we don't advertise. When we buy somebody, we don't do a big press release. We don't do a big splash. We'll wait a month before we even tell the employees of the company, if ever. And we leave that up to the seller. We give them a lot of control in that, because they know their team better than we do. We don't change the name. We still contribute to the communities. They still have their mascots handing out, the fuzzy animals at the hockey games and things. So we keep all that very quiet. But we, behind the scenes, a company can start really getting their ducks in a row, make sure they got a good ERP system, make sure they're not using some software system that they wrote. Make sure that if they are going through a software transition, they give it a year, because it takes that much time to tie that out. Make sure that their employment records are good. Make sure that they're complying with all laws. So there's a lot that I would recommend. And we have these conversations when we're doing a first intro call. We'll start asking some of these questions, and we'll get a sense of, why are they ready to be bought or not? Are we going to have to do a lot of work? How much wood are we going to have to chop on this once we close a deal? And we've probably backed away from more deals because of stuff like that. Is it incompetence or integrity? Those are the two things I always look at that when I'm walking through. Okay, is it they just don't know, or are they trying to do something funny? We've seen some interesting things out there. So, and then past practices are a good indication of the integrity of the organization. We look at how they've been running their business. Companies that 1099 everybody, like, guys, time out. What are you trying to achieve here? Do you really want to sell this thing? So, there's a lot that goes into it. I think my many years of being the leader at Isaac has really helped with that. And, our partners, enjoy having me on the team. I hope, because I can provide that behind the scenes look. Whenever we do a site visit, that's an early on thing that we like to walk around and kick the tires. I want to make sure that this thing passes smell test.
Sure.
Are you really running a $10 million business out of here? It's one room. There's no there. I mean, come on, guys. Where are you stocking your trucks? Well, we delivered it to their house in the morning. Well, that's not something we can scale. I mean, it's not scalable. There's heroic overcoming a poor process here. So yeah, you have one person that's doing everything. That's not scalable. So we'll usually shy away from that. We want a good established business that is not perfect, because that's where the beauty lies and our value lies in that accretive gain we can get in that company. So
let's do a little breakdown of those levels of complexity that we talked about. You mentioned when, that first hurdle, that $1 million hurdle, to, what levels would you break them up at? Where do you think?
$1 million, $5 million. Sometimes that next one really comes up quick at 10 or 12, just from what I've seen. These are just knuckle doses, my dad used to call them. Then you can probably get up to 25 or 30 from there. You'll have an established business. We look at revenue per employee, and it should be right within a sweet spot there. $2 to 220,000. That means they're efficient. They have the right amount of overhead. You can squeeze a lot out of a business by running it very lean and mean, but you can only do it for so long.
Right.
And a lot of companies have very inefficient operations that they just make look good by throwing a high price on it. So we look at that. What's their average price? How do they compare to the market? So 30 up to 50, 60. And then on from there, there's growth, but we usually see that. You can tell. I mean, I always say the first level of complexity, at the $1 million mark is mom or grandma. It's the wife or the husband, whatever. If it's, the spouse is the one that's doing all the office work, that's doing the billings, the dispatching. All roads lead through them. That's a big level of complexity when you start hiring outside employees that you get, and then you empower them. As I say, the things that we do, we engage, we educate, we empower, and then we enable. And that's that first level of empowering other people in your organization at that $1 million to really start making decisions in it. So, we can see those levels and what is attached to each one.
So in your industry, getting to $1 million, you can do that as a solopreneur. You can do that with your wife doing the books or grandma doing the books, so to speak, to get there. From there, you're talking about adding employees, because you have to start scaling now. And that, when you add those people in there, you've got somebody else that's doing the jobs for you. You've got somebody else that's doing the billing. You're adding some marketing in there. You're starting to get a name for yourself. And now you hit 5 million. Mm-hmm. What's happening there? What are the levels? What are the things that you're seeing at that 5 million mark for most businesses?
Yeah, I mean, you go to Michael Gerber's E-Myth, it's that entrepreneur that has the entrepreneurial seizure and becomes a business owner, and they realize that they need to bring in that manager. You got to bring in some level of mid-level management. It doesn't have to be a full-time $120,000 a year person. You should have somebody, though, that has that capability and the capacity to be that lead. So, the bottleneck's at the top of the bottle. Right. I mean, you are the bottleneck in your organization. You can only flow through it so much. So you need to increase the width of that bottleneck. And you do that with other people in the organization, I think. And again, these are, the business rules according to Ray, which probably 99% are wrong, but they work for us. Fake it till you make it. But, you get through that, and then...
Let me stop for a second. So at that $5 million mark, what I'm seeing is the owner has to get out of their own way. Mm-hmm. And the way to do that is by bringing somebody in that can help you to manage. So basically, like a lot of people have heard of EOS, the Entrepreneur Operating System, or any of the other business coaching, Scaling Up, or Metronomics. You did Scaling Up. Yeah. Matter of fact, I know your coach that you worked with, Lynn.
Yeah, that was great.
So one of the things I want to point out is, that is in every one of the business operating manuals that is out there, the operating systems. They all talk about the entrepreneur has to take their vision, and then they need somebody to implement their vision.
Yep.
And when you find that partner, that really takes a lot of pressure off you. For me and my business, I don't have that yet. I have myself with the vision, and I have somebody who's the direct opposite of me of getting all the things done in the back office, but she can't manage the whole practice, if that makes sense. And so so there's that we need that go-between that understands what happens in front of the client and what happens in the back office behind the curtain, so to speak. And that's and that's what we're looking for right now as we're building our business. But so it's very, very common in every business. It doesn't matter whether you're heating and air conditioning or wealth management, multifamily office, you're still running into the same issues as you're building the business.
Yeah.
Skipping from 5 million to now you get to that 10 or 12 million dollar mark. What are the hang-ups? What's happening?
Again, world according to Ray. I mean, what you were describing is you go from working in the business to working on the business. So and then you start building that team. You start building that next level, and it's a little bit of bureaucracy in a good way. You need levels. I mean, you go to the Marines, their model. No platoon was more than, I don't know, a certain number of 15, I think. I mean, you can only really be personally responsible for 15 direct reports.
Sure.
6 is probably optimal. Where you have the hand-to-hand, collaboration and teamwork with that person. So you start.
I've heard that called the pizza rule.
Yeah.
No more people that can eat a large pizza together.
Yeah. Well, with my kids, that would have been 2 people on a team. So, but that's so you start building that team. As I said in the very beginning, I was probably a terrible manager. I mean, if somebody told me right now to sit down and write a procedure manual, I would implode. I've got late onset ADD. I mean, I just can't do that. I was probably not a great leader. I always wanted to be a level 5 leader. But again, being a team builder, I think that was my skill. I just had a knack for recognizing talent in somebody, even though they had a lot of maybe bad points. And not in a personality, abrasive type personality, but maybe they weren't good with numbers, or maybe I could always see past those and look for the good in them. And Marcus Buckingham, maximize. Don't look for the negatives. Everybody has them. Just maximize the positives. Accentuate the positives in somebody and eliminate the negatives. So I always look for focusing on people's strengths and starting to build that and recognizing that, and then empowering them, giving them that opportunity. Our VP of integrations now, a kid named Jeremy Knoll, who's doing a fantastic job. He's with the holding company now. I took him with me when I got my position with the partners. I brought him with me, and I remember him coming in one day when he was service manager, and he laid out this beautiful plan of what he wanted to do. And he says, "Well, what do you think?" I said, "Well, it depends." He says, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, it depends. Are you asking me or are you telling me?" And he stopped. He's like, "I guess I'm telling you." I said, "Great. Let me know how it works out." And right there, those are the moments of truth. You need to be able to do that. And that's where I say on the 4 E's: empower and enable.
Yeah.
Everybody gives people empowerment, but then they're very tentative and hesitant to enable them to be able to go out and act. The definition, it's micromanagement. And people, they'll realize that's just a person that needs to be involved in everything. No, it's not always that. It's where they'll empower somebody, but then they constantly are needling them, not doing check-ins, but constantly needling them on, did you do this? Did you do this? Did you do this? You have to enable them, give them chances to make mistakes, and it's not perfect. So, and there's another great, I'm a fan of great books. They can say things that I don't even, know how to put in words, but Trust and Betrayal in the Workplace. Mm-hmm. Great book. I had one of our leaders.
The Arbinger Group, right?
And it was a woman that wrote it, but the basic premise of it, trust begets trust, and trust begins with you. And I had one of our leaders once came in one day. He says, "The team doesn't trust me." I said, "Well, why?" "I don't know. I do. I'm a trustworthy person. I give them every reason to trust me." I said, "Well, I know why it is." And he said, "Why is that?" I said, "Because they think or know, whichever one it is, and perception is truth here, they know that you don't trust them." I said, "You're not going to give somebody your trust if you know they don't trust you." I said, and I gave him the book. I said, "Trust begets trust. Trust begins with you." They know that if you give them a job, you're going to constantly not trust that they're going to be able to do it. And, there's a kind of a turning point there. And that's, you need to have that trust. And that's the enablement part. And then they are going to execute. They're going to evolve, and they're going to enjoy what they're doing. if
Yeah.
they're in a trusting relationship. I mean, the first dysfunction of a team, absence of trust. So we can tie all these books together. I mean, they all kind of flow into one.
Let's talk about that for just a second, because I'm thinking about there are many family businesses that I know of that, where the CEO or the family is able to get to that 30, 35, 40 million, $50 million, but they still have their fingers on everything. So when you see that, what's typical for their transition process and their succession planning when the CEO or the president of the company or both control everything?
Yeah, that's a tough one because that's a personality trait. I have a buddy of mine, and I said, all roads lead through you. And he wonders, why am I having trouble? Why can't I get a good general manager? Because they're not a general manager. They're general, but they're not a manager. And you also need, and again, I always look at management and leadership very different. I never use the two combined. Businesses, processes, procedures, policies, those things, that's the things you manage. But business is also another P, it's people.
Right.
It's
always people.
And that's who you lead. And again, my dad, a good quote from him, he says, anytime you see the need, or as soon as you see the need where you have to manage somebody, you've lost. Mm-hmm. So this person constantly is managing people. All roads lead through him. He's not empowering anybody. He has a trouble where every idea has to be his. And and again, his ideas might be 100% right, but good judgment comes from experience, and experience comes from bad judgment. You need to give people the opportunity to build their own experience. So, and you're so fearful of making a mistake or the business going backwards. You can't operate out of fear. You got to be okay. You got to have a skunk works in your own company where, write that off as marketing or training or education and be okay with that. So, we look at this. We see companies where we'll go in and they're a $20 or $30 million company, and we ask one of the specific questions we ask the owner, the seller, is, what do you do? What are you responsible for? Where's your team? We want to see the organizational chart. You can redact it all you want. You can take out names. You can take out everything. Just put in, just smiley faces and what their title is. But we want to see how many roads lead through them, because it's going to be tough. We go in, we do an acquisition. Even though we're going to keep everything there the same, we still have some must-haves. I mean, obviously, we're going to transition to a software system. We're going to have policies, procedures, safety, things like that. And if Jeremy comes in with Jake, his guys, and they're going to integrate them and try to maximize them, and this person is the biggest roadblock in the organization, that's going to be a tough one.
Right.
We had to unfortunately just back away from a deal where a great company, great person, nothing wrong with the person. None of these are judges on people.
Exactly.
It's no indictment on you as you as a person. Lovely person that we were dealing with, but all roads lead through him. It's just not going to be scalable. I mean, you have to have that scalability. That's why I love the Scaling Up by Vern Harnish. And when we had Lynn help us through that, I mean, I looked at EOS and it was great. I thought it went not beneath us, but we had already challenged those. We had visionaries, we had implementers, we had all those in our organization. I still use portions of that when we did ours, but the Scaling Up gives you that model for how you're going to scale this business to something that's going to be double in size. And fortunately, most of the companies we buy are sub $10 million in revenue, which is great. We love them. Okay. It's more work. It's a lot more effort. You got to put in as much effort. I mean, a plane ticket to go see a $100 million company is the same exact price as a plane ticket to go see $1 million company. So that percent of revenue is greater, but we see such greater response to what we bring into the company and the things that we can help them maximize. So we like that, but we start looking at a very low level of, okay, how many roads lead through these individuals? You got to get out of the way. Unless that's what you want to do, then okay, get out of the way of something else. You can't be everything in the organization. It's a law of diminishing returns.
Agreed. You hit on something I think that's really important that I want people to hear. You are the private equity group today. I mean, you're part of that group. Yep. And you're looking for partnerships with $5 million to $10 million companies on average.
Yep.
And the reason that they should be partnering with you is because exactly what we talked about before is those levels of complexity You can do this. There's an old, I think it's an African proverb that says, you want to go far or you want to go fast, go alone. You want to go far, go together. And so you've been through all of these hurdles before and broke through them. And then also did the transition to private equity yourself. And so now you can partner with them to help them to see, look, here's the systems and processes you don't have in place right now. Here's what you're missing in terms of the leadership team. Here's, what you need to do in terms of delivery and service. And man, how nice has that got to be for a lot of these people to be able to say, we were $5 million. Here we are, however many years later, and we quickly grew to, double that immediately because of that partnership. Mm-hmm. What else? As I'm thinking, that's the icing on the cake as far as I'm concerned, is to have that piece, with the private equity portion. Do they still keep ownership in some of that? How does that work for them?
Okay. Yeah. A lot of great points. I should bring you out with us when we talk, because that's exactly, we're different. And again, I say that we are different in our approach. We use a very peer group, collaborative approach when we buy somebody. And I said partner with more than I said buy.
Yes, you did.
Because we are partnering with them. To answer your last question there, yes, we offer the opportunity. We like it when they roll over. Rolling over means you take a portion of your proceeds. There's another great book, the Private Equity Playbook.
Okay.
Gentleman that owned a heating and air conditioning business down in Atlanta wrote it, and it explains all the elements, but he suggests in there 33% of what you receive. So if you get to $10 million, take $3.3 million and roll that back into the larger holding company. So they are now buying back in to the stock of the company that owns not only them, but every other company. Mm. Now, it dilutes the existing shareholders, even though I'm an existing shareholder. My brothers and I all did that. That was one of our requirements when we sold, with that we had the opportunity to roll over. The old private equity adage is, why sell your company once when you can sell it 2, 3, 4 times? Right. You constantly, every time it sells, then you're getting a return on that investment that you rolled back in. And it's risky, but that's, part of it. So that's why we say partner. And a lot of them do that. I think we're batting 1,000 on that, where everyone that has sold to us has either rolled over for them or for their team, or both. My brothers and I did that. One of our requirements, we wanted our team to have an opportunity to finally own Isaac. And now they do. So our key leadership team, we were able to give them a portion of ownership, because they're the ones that did a lot of the work to grow this company. So we do that. We are very collaborative, though. We work with them to help them grow the business. And it's back to the true source of private equity. It used to be a company comes in, invests capital into your business to help you grow. And that's really what we're doing. Some private equity guys out there will come in and they will, on day one, they remove you. They remove your senior leadership team. We don't understand what they're buying, because they take great companies and we've seen some of them go backwards. Yeah. So we're applying a very different approach. Not that their approach is bad. It's just it isn't right for us. They must have a bigger plan there.
Go back to the culture fit.
Yeah. So we want to make sure that we're very collaborative and we're achieving best practices and economies of scale. And that's how we're going to grow that. That's why we love the smaller businesses, where we can take them from 2 million. We can take them to 4 million. We have an example right in one of our first acquisitions we did down in Binghamton. When we bought them, they are over double their size now in less than 3 years. We've doubled them.
Wow.
And we're not talking about businesses that are 5 years old. Some of these companies, we have a company that we've bought that is the same age, 79 years old, same as Isaac. And we've already grown them more than what they've grown in their whole history. So, that's our approach. Again, it's not that they weren't doing anything wrong. They just didn't know what they didn't know. Right. And we help them get to where the puck is going and bring in those best practices. And we're offering a smooth, thoughtful, intentional, integrated transition for them. As I said, nobody gets out alive. Life is too short. We want them to enjoy this. We don't want them to think the day after that they made a mistake. We give our new partners, potential partners that we're looking to buy, we give them our full list of companies that we've bought. Said, pick one. Just let us know which one you picked. We're going to just let them know you're going to call, so they answer your questions. We'll just give them a heads up. But we give them the full list to call, because we want to use a collaborative approach at the end of the day. And again, it's when I go back to how I tried to run Isaac was that, look, if you love what you do, you're never going to work a day in your life. How many business owners out there are miserable every single day when they go into work? And I think we probably talked about this the last time, and then they expect their employees to be happy, and they're the most miserable SOB in the company. And SOB a lot of times is son of the boss.
Right.
You know, they're the miserable one in the company, and they're expecting everybody else to be happy. Well, there's another word for them. It's called hypocrite. So I do my keynote on that, and it's called Never Work a Day in Your Life, and it really leads you through this journey of you're the cancer in your organization a lot of times because you're miserable, and all your employees see that. You create the entitlement because you drive in and you park in your private parking spot in the front row with your Maserati, and you get out because God forbid you get any extra exercising. You want to be right by the front door. You have your private parking spots, the boats, and all this, the lifestyle business stuff. So we try to help a business do a nice smooth transition where they can nice coordinated approach and give them that confidence that we are going to take care of the triple bottom line, their team, their clients, and their community. And that's the philosophy that Isaac always had, was that, and they still do. We take care of those three bottom line. Those are the three important ones. And community is very important too. We don't make them change charities they give to. We don't even ask them. We look at a consolidated budget. Yeah, we'll help them coach through their SG&A. But if they have a line item on there, they support their local charities. Yes, keep doing that. Please keep doing. Don't change that. So it's a different approach that we use, and maybe that comes from me and our team and our partners. I mean, our PE partners. They are good people, and that's the big thing. They're good people. So they that was something I looked at. Are these good people? They're going to allow us to continue to do this, or are they just Madison Avenue, burn the city down when you leave, type things? Right. No, they wanted. We're creating a good company. We're building a great company. Actually, whether we sell again or not, we're going to have a great company.
We've got a couple minutes left, and we've talked about people and building teams. I'd like to, and that's one of your specialties. So I'd like you to take a few minutes to talk about, as you're developing a leadership team, if you're coaching somebody else to develop their leadership team, how do we know, what are you looking for in leaders? And I know the 3 E's, the 4 E's that we talked about, but then what happens how do you know when they're not a fit? And how do you weed out to build that team? Because what I always tell CEOs is the people that you bring in front of me that is your leadership team today, a year from now, not all of them are going to be here. Mm-hmm. Because what we think is, a good leader, at the end of the day, when we're really trying to grow the business to the next level, get through that level of complexity, a lot of times being on the leadership team isn't the right fit. There's another great spot for them in the company. How do you go about that process?
How much time we have?
Do you want to do another?
Google leadership and you get back a million results. Yeah. I mean, I guess I go back to the 2 I's, integrity or incompetence. You got to look, okay, am I dealing with a good person and just needs a little bit of training and education, or am I dealing with a prima donna?
Yeah.
That knows everything.
How did you weigh the difference? I guess that's the question.
Familiarity, obviously. We try to always promote from within.
Okay.
And again, Jim Collins talks about it in Good to Great. Most of the Good to Great companies promoted from within. They didn't. I mean, you look at Kodak. They brought in all these CEOs from outside. They didn't know the culture. They didn't know the organization. They make dumb decisions. But I always try to promote from within. We got a great team now. Senior VPs, Dominic and Wes, are doing a fantastic job. They 25, 30-year employees. They were service techs for me. So they've done a great job. Look at the science. We profile. We would run them through a predictive index and everybody had that on their doors. I could tell exactly what I should be saying and how I should be talking to somebody because their PI was right on their door. I'm a controller. I mean, not in the sense that I had to be in charge of everything, but I was kind of one of the person, give me a lot of info, be collaborative in my decision making, but I'm going to make the decision. And whether you agree or disagree, I expect you to get on board. So that was my profile, and I was okay. You want to look at people that are comfortable in their own skin. Again, the first level of leadership is self-leadership, being comfortable in your own skin, being okay with who you are. I had a young gentleman at the gym the other day ask me, he says, what's your one item of advice? If you had no other advice you can give, what's your one item? I'm like, oh, gee, I have probably no advice, but I said, be okay with who you are.
Yeah.
You're going to be a much better leader. If you're okay, the window in the mirror, to give credit, look out the window. Take blame, look in the mirror, because it's not a reflection on your self-worth as an individual. So look for people who are okay, comfortable with their weaknesses, who are hungry, humble, and smart. You know, the perfect team player. You want, before you can be a leader, you got to be a good team player. And not being that being a player is also synonymous with being a good manager or coach. They are a little different, but you also got to be able to be a good team player. Having the guts to make difficult decisions, being okay with comfortable with difficult conversations. Michael, I was terrible at it. It would keep me up for nights, and I'd have the conversation with somebody, and they're consoling me during it. We got some leaders at Isaac are very good at having difficult conversations. That is a very important thing, where you can present information. It's not judgmental, but it's fact-based. You have a little empathy, not sympathy, but you have empathy in it. So again, these are all those little elements that I guess in the stratosphere of leadership I always looked for. And that's just my approach. I'm sure there's much more gifted leaders out there. As I said, I'm not a very good leader. I was able to find people that were. So I built a team around that. And everybody has skill. Everybody has value. And people that, you always want those people. And I go back to, from John Engel's Advanced Leadership Competence. I was one of his first classes. I was in his class on 9/11. So that tells you how long, 23 years ago now.
Wow.
And the main point in his was be a calming presence in an anxious environment. Be that person. It doesn't mean that you're not anxious. Doesn't mean you're not scared. I mean, you talk about, there's fear in everybody, but you don't let it dictate. You always take that third person point of view on how you control your actions, but be that calming presence in the anxious environment. And every person in our team knew that adage. A lot of them had been through his program, but I tried to pay it forward with them and help them. So you look at how people react. Always observe, always watch, look for the small stuff. It's what I do now when I walk through a company. I'm not looking at the billboards. I'm looking at the corners.
Right.
We had, I had a company I went through, and the guy says, "Yeah, we run a very tight ship. Everything's clean and neat. We clean up every night." And I looked at a box of sheet metal screws that had tipped over on the floor, and they were scattered everywhere, and they had dust on top of them, and they were underneath. I said, "You're full of crap. You don't clean this up because that's been on the floor." I didn't say it to him, but I knew right then. I said, "The guy's lying to us. He cleaned the place up, and he forgot that." And not only was he walking across it, everybody else was walking across it. I'm doing integration meetings with new partners, and I'm picking up sheet metal as I'm doing the presentation. And I had an employee call me out in Erie, Pennsylvania. He goes, "What are you doing?" I said, "I don't know. It's just force of habit. I'm picking up the sheet metal on the floor." He gave them an indication of, we run a tight ship, but you got to lead by example and be the, as Abraham Lincoln said, morbid, people, a true leader is somebody's that other people want to follow, even if it's out of morbid curiosity. They value you, they trust you, and again, the 5 dysfunctions of the team, trust, conflict, commitment, accountability, and results. So you'll have those in an individual as much as in the team.
Accountability, I think, is one of those ones that's always hard. It's those difficult conversations to keep them aligned and accountable to what they say they're going to do. Yeah. I love that. Ray Isaac, you and I could talk for about 3 more days. I think we're going to have to, a year from now, we'll tag you and do a whole thing on just leadership, because you may say you're not a fantastic leader, but obviously you've done a great job of putting together a team. And that is one of the hardest things for a lot of CEOs to do. So I just want to say thank you for joining us today. Really appreciate your time. Any final words that you want to make sure that you get out? Or
no, just have fun, live life, enjoy it. Life's too short, and on your dying day, is any of this gonna matter? Is any of this gonna matter?
Yeah.
Everything that's going on in the world, right? Is it gonna matter? I think of relatives that I've lost, and that's what changes you in your life, is the losses. I've lost my nephew, my sister's oldest boy, at 18 years old. I mean, that changed me forever. It's like, does any of this really matter? Enjoy life. I lost my sister, his mom, a couple of years ago at 59 years old, and I just lost my dad. Grandparents and father-in-law who I loved. I mean, those are the things that you look at then and say, they're not worrying about these things. Unfortunately, I wish they were here to, share, but none of this is going to matter. So enjoy life. And you look at the political environment and what's going on in the world. It's like, none of it matters. I mean, we got an ultimate power that we answer to. So let's, try to make him happy versus, trying to make everybody else happy at this point. And just have fun and be a good person.
Love it. Thank you for sharing everything. Appreciate everybody's time. Glad that you were all here. Again, I'm Michael Columbus with Family Wealth and Legacy, and you've been listening to the Family Biz Show. We can't wait to have you on the next episode and listening in. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day and have fun out there. And don't take it too seriously. Take care. Don't miss an episode. Subscribe now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts.